Hello and welcome to Planning for Structural Change, SMEs and Resilient Rural Regions webinar organized by Regional Excellence Research Group as a part of the Foundation project funded by Interac Europe. In the next 2 hours, we will dive into the world of rural regions and their development through the activities of businesses operating in these regions. The word of the day is resilience, as this webinar will raise new views and research results on SMEs' resilience in rural regions. We will find out the answers to questions such as how the growth and internationalization can be supported by different regional policy instruments, what can we learn from, and how can we advance the triple helix model. In the first half of this webinar, we will hear 6 keynote presentations from experts from different fields. Then, in the second half, we will engage in a panel discussion where we talk more about strengthening competitiveness through collaboration. We also hope that you, our dear webinar participants, will actively engage in the discussion. Remember to send tweets, comments, questions on social media by using the hashtag #ResilientRuralRegions or tag foundation_EU on your tweets. My name is Simo Kekäläinen and I will be your host today. And without any further ado, let's move on to the presentations. I would now like to introduce Matti Muhos, Director of Kerttu Saalasti Institute from the University of Oulu, to open this webinar. Welcome, Matti.
Hello, everyone. And from my behalf, you are all most warmly welcome to the Interac Europe webinar. I'm also, in addition to the position as a director of the Institute, a professor of industrial engineering and management at the University of Oulu. We are one of the partners of the Foundation project. The central aim of this webinar is to raise new views and research results on SMEs' resilience in rural regions, how the growth and internationalization can be supported by different regional policy instruments, and what can we learn from and how we can advance the triple helix model. This webinar is funded by Interac Europe program. The program is established to help regional and local governments across Europe to develop and deliver better policies. The central aim of the program is to create an environment and opportunities for sharing solutions and policy learnings. That is exactly what this seminar is all about. Let's share the best solutions and implement those solutions in the regional policies across Europe. The webinar consists of 2 main parts. During part 1, we will follow presentations from the selected speakers. The second part consists of a panel discussion focused on strengthening the competitiveness of SMEs in rural regions, especially from the perspective of triple helix collaboration. I'm really looking forward to learn a lot during these discussions. In the beginning, I would like to introduce you to Interac Europe Policy Learning Platform, where you can actually find several best practice examples from different parts of Europe. In this project, we have delivered many best practices from different regions, and first 3 cases from Finland. So from the platform, where you have the link also there, you can find more detailed descriptions of Micro-Interac Growth Network, which is the collaboration model developed by University of Oulu and its networks. It is built upon peer-to-peer learning support and co-creation. It is currently functioning in more than 5 sub-regions in Finland and expanding rapidly. The second one is Yritystakoma Enterprise Smithy, which was one of the key solutions in Oulu region in larger layoffs in recent years. And as a result of that best practice, there is a lot of thriving entrepreneurial activities in ICT industry in Oulu, and the ICT industry in this region is growing really fast. And the third one from Finland is the rural SME internationalization model from the southern part of Northern Ostrobothnia. The rural SME internationalization cooperation model lowers the threshold to internationalization to rural companies by peer network and shared marketing. It is easy to get to know these through the platform. And here are a couple of other cases from other collaborative project partners, which you can also find from the platform. One from Ireland, one from Austria, one from Poland, as an example cases. I want to thank all the presenters already in advance. Let's share the solutions and implement those in the regional policies across Europe. I'm certain that we are going to have a very interesting webinar today. Once again, welcome all.
Thank you, Matti Muhos, Director of Kerttu Saalasti Institute at the University of Oulu. We will continue with the presentation, and it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. John Hobbs, who's a Senior Lecturer of Economics at Munster Technological University in Ireland. He's also co-learning in the Foundation project. Welcome, John.
Good morning and afternoon, everyone. I guess that's a kind of first for me as an introduction. So it's morning time here in Ireland and in certain parts across Europe, and I guess it's just turned into the afternoon now in Finland. So I'm delighted to be here this morning to talk to you about co-learning and the opportunities across the Foundation project. And what I wanted to do was just explain a little bit about where the Foundation project came and the key role, I suppose, that the Oulu and Northern Ostrobothnia region, I suppose, have played within that. So in terms of the Foundation project and where it came from, there's a lot of difficulties across Europe. Every region is the same, be they urban, rural, etc., where you have large, significant employers who close down for a number of different reasons, to do with limited resources, to do with access to skills, to look at producing more efficiently or cheaply in other regions. And the impacts of these closures can have huge effects on the local economy, the employees, and even the sub-supply sectors within those economies. So when we had a chance, I suppose, previously to work collaboratively with the University of Oulu, we were invited to participate in a project on the Puusalmi mine, which was closing down, and planning for that shutdown, and how, I suppose, the region could react strongly to ensure that there was employment there once the main employment from the mine was taken away. So on the invitation of Matti and a number of his colleagues in the University of Oulu, our research group VLink within the Munster Technological University were involved in a small project which was funded by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment in Finland and worked in collaboration with NIHAC and Callio, some of whom we'll hear from later today. And that project really focused on looking at the impact that the closure would have on the sub-supply sector of the Puusalmi mine. So we conducted a number of interviews using a methodology that we've developed that's also coincidentally a good practice on the Interac Europe policy learning platform. And we looked at measuring, I suppose, and analysing the linkages and connections that those 13 SMEs had who supply the mine as one of their main customers. We looked at the geographic scope of those particular connections, So to see if they were just focused on the mine or if there was other connections they had outside of that, and what the next steps might be for them. We measured the impact of those connections, and then we visualized those connections. And I guess what we came up with was a nice map of the different sort of links they had across the different sort of geographic areas. You know, and I suppose one of the things we found was that these companies had a very limited number of international links and were really focused locally on the mine, but needed to start thinking more entrepreneurially about what links were available to them outside the region and where their new customers were going to come from, and planning for that. So after that piece of work, we looked into the future, to the different types of linkages that they would like to develop, where they would like to develop customers, and what types of skills they would need to be able to bring those customers on board. And we produced a report that's available, and it looked at a number of different elements, I suppose, in terms of helping and supporting those companies, you know, both through developing export consortia and clustering together to work collaboratively to reach those newer international markets. And I suppose that particular small piece of research built into a larger project where ourselves, the University of Oulu, and a number of other interested parties across Europe came together to look at this same difficulty that we all share of large company closures and the instability, I suppose, they bring to our local, our regional and urban economies, and how we would build resilience through collaboration towards that. But unfortunately, the COVID pandemic hit just after we had kicked off the project. So we got to meet face-to-face twice in Cork and in Manchester. But after that point, I suppose the world changed and everything changed in terms of how we're reacting to COVID. And not only were large enterprises closing their doors, but numerous SMEs, small and micro and local traded services, all had to close their doors for COVID in terms of public health requirements and in the interest of public safety. So we shifted the focus of our project to look at that, the impact, I suppose, of COVID-19 and supports for industry in terms of developing back, getting industry back open, looking at the different policies and programs that we're operating in our regions to support industry and support employment in this crucial time of need. So in terms of how we learn through Foundation, Matty mentioned the policy learning platform, and I have a little bit more information on that. But collectively, I suppose, as a partnership, we put forward the good practices and what's happening in our region in terms of regional development and planning, and we share the learnings we have through those programs, initiatives, actions which might be of relevance to our partner regions and even other regions across Europe, I guess. And our key focus is really driving that resilience and ensuring that we have, that we're able to withstand these shocks. I suppose, COVID has hit everyone like nothing ever before, but we should be more resilient coming out of the pandemic, and hopefully the vaccination rollout is happening well across Europe now at present. So in terms of sharing those good practices, as Matty mentioned, there's a good practice database, and all of these slides will be available and they're hyperlinked afterwards. So there's access to a number of different good practices on the entire Interac Europe database. There's also a COVID-19 good practices database, and the links will be available here as well. And as Matty mentioned, we share then when we meet, face-to-face or online via webinars, the good practices in our regions that might help and support other regions to become more resilient as well. So in terms of connecting with those good practices, all you have to do is pop onto the Foundation website, look under the tab Good Practices, and you can get more information on any of those that are of interest to you or your own organizations, no matter where you are across the globe or in Europe or in one of our partner regions. So it's available to all, and that knowledge sharing is free. So I'm very much looking forward to the webinar today and learning from our Finnish colleagues. And thanks very much for everyone for being part of this webinar, and importantly, our guests for plugging in this morning and connecting with the project. As was mentioned at the start, do pop your questions onto Twitter, and we'll get those to the presenters and ensure that there's a lively discussion this morning. So thank you very, very much, and I'll pass you back now to our host.
Thank you so much, John Hobbs, Senior Lecturer of Economics from Munster Technological University, for your wonderful presentation. And also thank you for your support from the Irish people for the Finnish Eurovision representative Blind Channel. We got many points from you, so love and support, that's all we need. We'll continue with the lineup of our presenters here, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mrs. Marjo Kolehmainen, who is the CEO of Federation of Finnish Enterprises here in Northern Ostrobothnia. Welcome, Marjo.
Pikkasen tarvin apua. Okay, thank you. Okay, hello everybody. It's very nice to be here, and I want to thank Kerttu Saalasti-säätiö and University of Oulu that I have a chance to make this presentation here. It's a little bit exciting to be here for two things. The first is that I'm actually at the university now, not in the corner of my kitchen, making this presentation. Hopefully the world changes like this now on. And the other one is that it's been almost a year since I last time spoke English, so let's do this with the rally English. Anyway, what I was planning to tell you, actually it's three things. First of all, of course, I want to tell something what our organization is and what it does. And then I tell briefly some numbers from our region so you can understand how important SMEs are for our region and its vitality. And then last I will show you some slides from our survey that our organization has made, which tells what entrepreneurs think about growth and what helps them to grow and what motivates them and what are the limitations. So who we are? We are an organization founded by entrepreneurs. We have 115,000 members. They are all SMEs. And they have actually 660,000 jobs and employees. This includes also the business owners. We operate in three different levels. Of course, the national level. My organization is from the regional level, Northern Ostrobothnia, and then we have these local associations and societies, actually in every town and city here in Finland. We are the largest business organization here in Finland. And why do we exist? Of course, it's a simple reason. We advocate for entrepreneurs. We present SMEs, businesses, and we want to improve the position of entrepreneurs and help them to grow, help them to do their business. Our goal is to make Finland a better country to do business in. And for that, of course, we need a lot of good partners, such as University of Oulu, of course. We want to also tell everybody that entrepreneurship is not only that the companies make money and they make profit, but in the whole, the Finnish society, it's important that entrepreneurs are doing well, and it leads us towards to a better future. Of course, we impact the decision makers. That's the main thing, but we have also a lot of different kind of services to our entrepreneurs. I won't go them through. You can see it from the slide. But one of the biggest issues to be a member is, of course, that we have a big network of experts who help our members for free. They are lawyers or tax experts and so on. So it's very, very good service for our members. And the other one is, of course, networking. We are an excellent platform for entrepreneurs to network. So that's about that. Then the Northern Ostrobothnia. We have here almost, we have a little bit, now the number is a little bit over 17,000 companies in our region. And they almost every one of them is SME. We have only 24 companies that are big. All the others are SMEs. And 93% of our companies employ less than 10 persons. So a lot of small companies in our region. On those companies, we have 72,000 employees. And turnover they have been made is more than 15 billion euros. This is number from the year 1918. And paid salary is 2.6 billion euros. So just by looking these numbers, you can see that SMEs are very important to our region. It really gives the vitality. In our region, we have members 4,100. And on those companies, there are about 30% of the jobs in private companies. Then the results of this Direction of Growth survey. I took only 3 slides from that survey to this presentation, but if you want to look it further, you need to go to our website, and there it's unfortunately only in Finnish, and I thank Katarina for translating these next slides to me so I can present them in English. First, we asked the entrepreneurs that which encourages the entrepreneur to grow. And there you can see the top 3. And it's very easy. That was, it's not, I didn't mean easy. I think this is very clear result if you are thinking about how to be a successful company. First of all, our entrepreneurs, they believe that they have a good product and good service. They believe what they are doing, and that's very important, and that encourages them. The other half is that entrepreneurs, they have their own growth-seeking motivation. And I think it's the only way to grow is that also the entrepreneur is motivated to grow and wants to grow, wants to keep up his or her competence to grow. And if you have a good product and an excellent entrepreneur, of course you need the clients. So responding to demand is the third one that encourages the entrepreneur to grow. Of course, there are several other things, as you can see from that list, but in my mind, I have always thought that there is this formula, this triangle of success that needs that the entrepreneur's competence, the personal talent, it must be talented, that must be good. Then you have a chance to success. Of course, the product as well must be good, and then you have to have the clients. If you miss something in some of this triangle, you have some sort of trouble in your business. Then we asked entrepreneurs which one from the following means are the most important ones for your company. And here is the list of things that boost businesses to grow. And entrepreneurs had to choose what are the most important ones in their company that they do grow. And as you can see, the persons that are on this list, varies, and the difference in between the companies can differ a lot. So what I'm about to say is that we have if we want to make one recipe that helps entrepreneurs, enterprises, businesses to grow, it's impossible. We need 17,000 recipes in our region because we have so many different kind of companies in different situation, in different business field. So we need to know our companies and their needs. Of course, boosting sales and marketing was the biggest one, as I told before in my first presentation, but as you can see, there are a lot of others. Unfortunately, exporting is quite low. The percent is only 7%, and that is, I think, a common issue for us to talk about how to boost that, how to boost exporting. But maybe I go to the last slide now, because I think this is the most interesting if we are thinking about the topic of this webinar. Of course, we ask what boosts your business, then we ask what limits your business, and what are the issues that limits the growth. And this result can be surprising for some of us, because the biggest limitation is entrepreneurs' own well-being. As you can see, 48% entrepreneurs say that the biggest limitation to grow is their own well-being. And this doesn't mean that our entrepreneurs are exhausted or tired or they are not motivated doing their business, but it means that they want to make sure that their well-being is still good when they are doing what they are doing. And we very often talk about sort of tough issues when we are talking about what limits us to grow. We talk lack of finance or this sort of things. But entrepreneur thinks, and in enterprises they think that it's their own well-being. So if you want help enterprises to grow, you need to go to the entrepreneur's shoes and think what makes them their competence better, what lowers the other, for example, this legislation or bureaucracy or this sort of thing that gives gray hair to entrepreneurs, how to lower them, how to take these limitations away, and that way entrepreneur is more willing to take the risk in his business, and it doesn't cost his marriage or possibility to see their children to grow, but understands that I can handle this. It's good to be an entrepreneur, and I want to grow, and this doesn't actually, it gives me well-being. It gives me good that I have this company. So I hope this slide gives some sort of ideas to the panelists later on to talk about how to boost entrepreneurs' well-being. So that was my presentation, and I thank you a lot.
Thank you so much, Marja Kolehmainen, CEO of the Finnish Federation of Enterprises in Northern Ostrobothnia, for highlighting these important issues from the point of view of enterprises and entrepreneurs. We will continue with the presentation, and now I will introduce you Tiina Rajala, who works as a development director at the Council of Oulu region. Welcome, Tiina.
Good afternoon, everybody. Actually, we have an afternoon here, and somebody else is having late morning at the moment. I'm very pleased to be here and give a little presentation for you. I'm telling you something about our region, our organization, and some good examples what have we done here in our region. So sad that we can't meet you physically because at the moment in Finland, here is very, very sunny weather at the moment. I have to tell you that sometimes these times it's raining a lot and it's still very cold, but at the moment it's very, very sunny. There is more than or nearly 100 people now hearing this and us here. So that is telling, at least for me, that you are very commitment to this aim. Sorry about the technical broke, but like Simo said, it was just testing your resilience in there through the net. So something about our region. Our region is second largest province in Finland, and we are having 30 municipalities. We are very well known about our young people. We are youth province in Finland. Our average age is under 40. And that means also that the companies are having, at the moment, quite good labor workers, but at the moment we are going to this situation that we are aging. Our demographic way at the moment in Finland is not so good. But here in this area, 1 in 5 children is under 15 years old. In this area, we have the 5th largest city, and our main city in this area is Oulu. And every 10th child is born in this area. We have a lot of forest, so you can see that almost as much as the whole area of Belgium is. That is something what is telling about our industry in this area. But how we are located here and how we are located in Europe. As you can see, if we look at where is Finland, we are a little bit like an island here. So it's not the destination that you are passing through. No, sorry, you really have to come here. And you have to make the decision that you are coming here. So that's a challenge. And it's also a challenge to our companies because that make the more difficult, for example, to get the products to Europe or to any place in the world. This region is like a belt in our country in the middle. Our population is this little bit more than 5 million. And as you said that our population here is a little bit more than 400,000 people. Actually, Simo was saying that thank you for giving the points in Eurovision Song Contest, but last week we got the great news for Oulu. So Oulu will be the European Capital of Culture 2026. We are very proud for that. And you see this guy who is standing in our marketplace and have dressed like what is the T-shirt for this capital, European Capital of Culture. But something about our region and how our organization is working. So we have these 30 municipalities, and assembly of the council is 74 members and the board is 13 members. Every 4th year we have an election here and it's renewing and starting their work in the beginning. The point of this is that they are politically chosen and we have the straight connection to the political decision. That is, I have to say, sometimes it's a challenge, but usually it's a possibility. Because then we have the region's politicians' commitment for this work, what we are doing. There was a question, and question today is that how we can guarantee that decision what this level is making is also going to the municipalities. When this board, for example, is accepting our regional programs, they are giving signal that they have commitment for this work. And from my side, I'm doing actually my team is preparing what kind of projects we are financing, and I have to make the decision. But by challenging the development financing into agreed regional points, we can increase our resilience of the area economy and also SMEs. So in political level and operational level, we are connecting these two things. There is a written in law that we are regional development authority, but we are not only doing this development work. We also do a lot of other things. For example, how we are using our land in this region. And also one big thing that we are doing the lobbying for the national decision makers, and we are giving that signals, and we are also we have cooperation with European Commission. So our intermediate body in ERDF Fund, we are working like intermediate body, and our budget have been in this 7 years period 123 million euros. So yearly it is around a little bit more than 12.5 million. We have also some national funds, and we are getting these funds from the government, but the decision making is here in regional level. And that is something what is supporting this, that we are pointing these funds for these what we have decided together, that what are the regional points at the moment. If there because always in this situation when we have opportunity to have a chance to tell how is our region, but and a little bit promote also that. So we are really waiting that you are able to come here. So our region is a little bit like Finland in all sides. So we have many opposing as well as enriching geographical, economical, educational and research-related characteristics. For example, city of Oulu, population more than 200,000 people, but it's also area where you can, what is the part of the reindeer management area. So this don't mean that we have reindeers and cars in the same place at the moment in middle of city, but you are able to see these both in this city. And our smallest municipality, Hailuoto, is island, which have only 950 inhabitants. You see this picture that there's an ice road to this island, and otherwise we have a ferry which goes to this island. So we have very different kind of environments, for example, for SMEs. The resilience of the area increases as it recognizes its own strengths and begins to journey from the home village to international areas. And so this same goes also to the SMEs. So we have to take first steps when we go to somewhere and we want to go somewhere else. So it's not necessary possibilities in your home village, but you can make those things in your home village, but you really have to go to the world and open the doors. This is something what we really have to learn, that we always have to have the sight for the future. And when Katarina was asking what are the main points, so I want to encourage all you that you have to be very proud where you are. You have to be. So I encourage you that you have to be proud and you have to do your way. And future is always there where you are. It is today and also tomorrow. This area is also very well known about the high ICT. And I don't know if you know this Oura ring. I hope you know. This is something that the application and it was developed here in Oulu region. That's an example that we have high technology and we have a lot of agri-food area and we have tourism. So very, very opposite things in this area. And this takes also challenge to SMEs to have this resilience and how to deal with that. There's a few things what we have agreed, like I told you, when our organization is changing and political decision makers. Every 4th year, we make the regional plan. We are doing that by workshops, by hearings, and many kind of process. And this is the common commitment for this area. And all our partners, there are representatives from public partners, private partners, educational partners. And then when we have had this ready and done, so we have common values and common vision. At the moment, by the way, we have election next Sunday, so we are doing this at the moment. This process takes about a little bit more than 1 year. But this is supporting us also as an investor when we are doing decision for the projects what we are financing. So I have to say that I wanted to make this presentation without saying word COVID-19, but it was impossible because there was a question about this resilience. And it came very quickly and it's worldwide. So we all know that it has concerned all us like as a person, and it's concern our all systems, for example, in education systems. And of course, it's caused a lot of harm for the business everywhere in the world. So have we learned something? Were our region SMEs resilient, high or low? And was it surprised that how big was the efficiency of the causes what this virus has caused. They have lost their customers. They have had cash problems. They have changed their custom management. People have to change their work habits, and work life has been changed a lot of, and also our social activities and interactions. But who is going to put out the fire, and who is going to help to obtain resistance in the future? Is this only virus what we are going to have? I hope it is, but and it's looking better at the moment. But are we ready for the new one, or is there coming some other kind of these problems? And now it's time to look at the future and think that how are we helping and having good practices to meet this kind of catastrophe once again. So do we have now mechanisms to promote recovery, reorientation, or renewal? I think everybody here the Commission agreement about the huge package, which was deal to European countries, and it's called REACT financing package, and this is something what we have done at the moment. I can tell you that our organization got 53 project application. They were asking about 18.8 million euros, and we had the amount what we can passed was a little bit more than 6 million. So there was a lot about the need to promote the recovery. I'm so sad that we couldn't finance in all those projects, but this was the fact that how much money we got. And something what we are usually, or we don't, I don't say care, but we don't see that all these changes are things what concern people. There are families, there are mothers, fathers. So we have to always find a solution, how we can survive, what we can do. But we also must prepare and increase our resilience. So these changes can be very, very sudden structural change. Usually in our region or in our country, it is that some international company makes the decision that they are closing a factory and so on. Or they can be foreseeable change, like Johnny who mentioned Pyhäsalmi mine. So it's closing in this year, and there have been a lot of plans how we can use, for example, this site for different purposes. For example, it was used in filmmaking here in Finland. That was only one example for the renew, what we can do there in mine. And now there's a new term that local structural change, but they are always local. They are not always foreseeable, or we don't know, unfortunately, when it's coming very sudden for some municipality or village or something. Unfortunately, we can't plan those things. So we have to repair so-called seatbelt. And I think the most important thing, like we are doing the regional plans, we should working towards that we have common goals, and common goals usually create success. Of course, there can be some, mistakes, but that's why we need this resilience that sometimes you fell down. I think when everybody reads the same map, so we have the same destination. That's why we are doing these regional plans and strategies. And they are the things and guiding books also for us that we can use development euros for these strategies and plans what we have common and political decision made. Also, the companies are having their own strategies and plans. That is very common thing, and of course, the good company is having own strategy and plans for the future. So if you have good plans, the other people and other organization is trusting you. So also the investors. There's a link here in my presentation, and there's more about our region's smart specialization. And the smart specialization programs are now based for the need for the next EU period for the 7 years. So, for example, there is Action Line 1, where is the demand that all projects what we are financing have to have connection to local, regional smart specialization programs. So we have also made a decision 3 years ago that all with what we are doing have to have international dimension. We have done a lot to have memberships in S3 platforms. We have done a lot of networking, and we have done also clusters in these regions. At the moment, we have membership with 10 S3s, and I'm very proud about these. Also, the other thing is that I have to say that I have been like a teacher that I'm demanding that actors in our region are starting to with international cooperation, looking for the international funds more. And for example, this project where we are dealing today, it's a great example about this kind of work. So cooperation, learning, and understanding are the key words. We are having at least one Europe, and we are having one future. It is something that we have to make together. I would like to present a little example for about this, what we have done also and how we are create. I don't go deeper into this, but there's a guy in this area that he has created with the Cambridge University this kind of innovation hub concept, and we have put it in our region plans too. So it is so small text that I can't see exactly. But down there is a ground, and the ground is that we have the regional and national politics and programs. That's what I just told you about the regional plan. Then there has to be a three partner side. So there has to be a public sector activities. There has to be public and private partnerships, and we need to anchor which are private sector representations, so they can be companies in this area. We have, I take the other one, and this is something what we did about, I think 5 years ago. It's a little bit old, but but it's still working, and the company names has been changing. But we have the anchor companies up there, the private, but in the down we have the regional plans that what we have all have commitment and what we have agreed together. You can copy that if you like, and you can find the internet that this Martti Laudonen is the father of this thing. But I think this was my message, but I want to give you info about one more thing. And as you see, there's the same guy again, like in first picture. And then there's a laughing child. So you don't believe, but Finland is the 4th year now the happiest country in the world. When you are walking here in our city or somewhere, we are not laughing all the time, but at least we are happiest. Everybody is saying that. Sometimes we even have to ask about self that, are we happiest? But this is a good image for us. And of course, there's our Eurovision competition represented blind channel. So that was my presentation. Thank you for you all. And I send special regards to Hungary. I was living there 6 years and still half of my heart is there. Thank you. Let's have a good seminar ending. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiina Rajala, Development Director at the Council of Oulu Region, for giving this wonderful overview of our beautiful and diverse region. We welcome the next speaker, who is Jaakko Simonen, Associate Professor at the Department of Economics, Accounting and Finance in Oulu Business School, University of Oulu. Welcome, Jaakko.
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon also on my behalf. We are here to share the views about the regional resilience and especially how it can be achieved in the case of rural regions and rural areas. In my presentation, I will discuss and look at the resilience from the point of view of academic research, especially from the point of view of regional economics and regional resilience. In other words, how well regions are capable to adapting to and recovering to various types of shocks, structural changes, crises, and how regional policy and well-functioning cooperation between the actors can help and support the regional resilience. Very quickly about the content of my presentation. First, few words about the how academic regional economic literature explains regional resilience. Shortly after that, shortly about the typical causes of regional shocks, and then what kind of creative policy measures can be used to alleviate adverse effects of regional shocks and crises. What can help regions' capability to adapt to and recover from shocks. And then final thing what I will present is the framework of creative resilience, which we have introduced in our research paper. Nowadays, there's growing interest towards the concept of resilience, both in regional economic research and in regional policy, like we have heard as well. We can say that now during the COVID-19 pandemic, regional resilience in general is one of the hottest topics in EU regional policy. In other words, we are more and more interested in what explains regions as well as firms' capability to adapt to the changes in the economic and technological environment. But why the issue of regional cyclical sensitivity is more relevant than ever before? The regional development has become a shock-prone process. We are living in a risk-prone world where the economic development is no longer that smooth. Global economic crises, climate change, extreme weather events are a good example of this. Through globalization, regions are also more and more linked together. This means that global crises may have a strong and rapid impact on regional development. Effect of final crisis, which started locally from mortgage, subprime mortgage market in crisis in the US, is a good example of this. It spread quickly to banks and other financial institutes all over the world. This had a dramatic effect not only at the national level, but also on the regional level, local level even. The current COVID-19 pandemic is another good example of completely different type of a global crisis that has spread around the world and has had a significant local impact. We can think about the tourism in Lapland, for example. But how do we define regional resilience? According to strict Latin root, resilire means to leap back or to rebound. Like some weight connected to a spring, when you pull it down, it comes back. In other words, ability in an entity or system to recover and position elastically following the disturbance or some kind of shock. We are talking about how well region is able to respond and recover from external shocks. That has pushed region out of its predictable economic growth path. Of course, like we had heard, important is also the ability of regions to anticipate and prepare for disturbances. Shocks can be global, national, local, sudden or slow, temporary or long-lasting, one shock or series of shocks. Local firm closures, industry-wide shutdowns are typical example of local shocks which have significant effects locally. The latest good example of this here in Finland is the announcement of closure of paper mill in Kemi, just 100 kilometers north from Oulu. We can say that attention has shifted from local competitiveness to local resilience. If previously the focus was on the competitiveness of of regions and cities, we were talking about the competitiveness indexes, and now the focus is on the resilience of regions. We are talking about the resilience indexes. How vulnerable regions are to shocks, what is their ability to adapt to the disturbances, and how to measure the resilience. How regions respond, cope with, and recover from the shocks. What then affects to the sensitivity or vulnerability of regional economies to various disturbances? Why are some regions more resilient than some others? One problem when we are investigating the resilience of regions is that resilience is typically occurred when the shock occurs. Furthermore, it's quite typical to analyze the final outcomes of crisis. However, analyzing of the final outcomes do not provide us a deeper information and understanding of how regions respond to, cope with, and recover from shocks. So in many ways, we can say that in the academic literature, resilience is the black box. We do not know the process itself that much. For instance, there were very few case studies where this regional resilience has been analyzed. The question is, can we identify what factors affect resilience, and furthermore, can we generalize those factors? However, we researchers are quite unanimous that sensitivity and vulnerability of regional economies to various disturbances and recovery from them depends on industrial structure. It's clear when regions' industrial structure becomes more and more specialized, risks of slowdown in growth arising from external industry-specific shocks are increasing. The general idea is that the diverse industrial structure has a great resistance against the shocks in the same way as investment, decentralized investment portfolio act against the risk. However, for small regions, a highly diversified industrial structure is not the optimal strategy. Our research has shown that the optimal diversity of industrial structure depends on the size of the region. The amount of regional human capital is also an important factor. In other words, people who are living in these regions. Ingenious growth theories and models typically emphasize the role of human capital in economic growth. Human capital is highly embodied in skills and knowledge of employees. For instance, skilled labor force attracts new businesses and promotes innovations. We can also argue that highly educated people are in many ways more flexible. Education increases chances of acquiring a new job, and it many ways increases persons' flexibility, allowing, for example, movement between different jobs. Highly educated people are also maybe more ready to re-educate themselves, and all in all, I think that the resilience of people has an extremely important in regional resilience. I think that it is perhaps the most important thing. Localized knowledge networks and technology clusters has also important role in regions' capability to react sudden changes. However, the effect of network on regional resilience is not totally unambiguous. Question is about the balance between efficiency of network and resilience of clusters. Closed network can be very effective to diffuse knowledge and it increases mutual trust between the actors, and thereby it might increase innovation activity of firms. But from the resilience point of view, there might be a risk that that network becomes too closed and the utilization of new opportunities offered by the development of different industries is hampered. So region might lock into inefficient state. Of course, like we heard, both the national and regional level policy has a very important, significant role too. How policymakers react to shocks. We may say that on the regional level or the local level, it's easier to prepare the changes inside, to observe certain risk positions. Areas that have undergone multiple shocks may have an expertise to handle future shocks. And it's possible that regions may also be more resilient to small shocks, but less resilient to large shocks or a series of shocks. The supportive institutional environment has also important role. Regions that provide various supporting facilities for startups and SMEs are well placed to resist and adapt to disturbances. In our previous studies, we have analyzed the structural change of the high-tech sector in Oulu region. But what makes Oulu such an interesting case? We can say that Oulu provides a textbook example at least in two, even in three different ways. First, it provides an excellent example how certain features of industrial structure and innovation network can cause serious problems for regional development when regions meet a shock. Secondly, in a similar way, it is an example how well region can adapt to and recover from shocks and disturbances through the effective regional policy. And furthermore, Oulu is an interesting example of creative destruction and creative resilience. I will come back to this concept later. So let's take a closer look at the high-tech sector in Oulu region. Why we have seen that it has recovered so quickly and so well. The effective regional policy has clearly been one of the most important reasons. Key actors in a region saw the possibility of this kind of shocks. Important thing, like we just heard in Tiina Rajala's presentation, the funding was used genuinely new activities so that old agents were not subsidized to be able to continue their outdated activities. Like we heard also, Oulu region has long been a good example of triple helix cooperation, but several new features during this Nokia shock took this collaboration into new levels. Support of growth entrepreneurship and construction of startups, ecosystem between various sectors have been the cornerstone of support of growth entrepreneurship and construction of startup ecosystem have been between the various sectors have been the other cornerstones of adapting to the structural change impact. It's clear that a specialization in new economy and innovative high technology industries provided a good starting point for recovery. In smaller rural areas, what we are interested in this seminar, this might not be the case. High technology firms are many ways dynamic and they are easy, the ability to reconfigure, renew and recreate their resources and assess in response to adverse circumstances. And the current COVID-19 shock has confirmed this, like we have seen. But like I said, the single most important thing why Oulu has recovered so well from the Nokia shock, at least I think so, has been the resilience of people. People have been highly committed to live and work in the Oulu region, and they have accepted lower wages, they have been ready to re-educate themselves, and they have set a number of startup companies. We haven't seen that kind of out-immigration of human capital. Different kind of education projects were launched, and so to increase and to support re-employment opportunities of people. We cannot also underestimate role of high-tech history. Rapid growth of electronic industry have created such entrepreneurship culture and strong atmosphere of full self-confident people who truly believe they knowledge and success, what it will bring for them and the whole region. I think that there was one question which I got earlier that we can also think about that what has been the role of Oulu's previous recoveries from economic crisis. Do we have that kind of special knowledge or expertise in dealing with these cases? I think that we have, and there are already some signs that Oulu region will recover from the current COVID-19 shock quicker and earlier than many other regions. I thought many of these things where I have listed here and mentioned here are related to the recovery of the Oulu region, a little bit bigger region, what we are talking about. I think that they can be considered in the case of rural areas too. And then last slide in my presentation is about the creative resilience framework. So these important features of regional resilience can be combined with a framework as what we call as a creative resilience. Successful resilience requires actions at the level of workers, firms, and regional authorities. Following three elements, knowledge creation, entrepreneurship, and community spirit form the core of creative resilience. When we are thinking about the knowledge creation, following ingredients are important. Creativity is needed in all levels of actors. We should not try to maintain old structures, but look for genuinely new opportunities. New growth paths can be reached through genuine reorientation. Related to entrepreneurship, basic ingredient for creativity is willingness to take risks. New types of products and services must be invented and created, and this doesn't happen without risk, taking risks. Formation of vital startup community is necessary condition for a region to be resilient. And the third thing is strong mutual trust community spirit. proactive management of structural change, as well as intensive triple helix cooperation, have clearly had an important role in the rapid recovery of Oulu. Actors trust each other and they are committed to commonly agreed goals. Forward-looking attitude is needed. So if you are interested, you can read more about and more details about the regional development in Oulu region from the article which was published last year. And here is a little bit more about regional resilience in Oulu region. But yes, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Associate Professor Jaakko Simonen from Oulu Business School at the University of Oulu, for enlightening us about the factors that create this famous Oulu and Northern Ostrobothnia region resilience. Now, dear audience, we'll be moving on to the second part of this webinar, which will be the panel discussion. But before I invite the panelists to the stage, we'll hear a grounding for the discussion by Mr. Ossi Kotavaara, who is a research director at the Regional Excellence Group in Kerttu Saalasti Institute, the University of Oulu, and also Foundation Regional Analysis. Welcome, Ossi.
Thanks, Simo. Dear panelists, dear participants and followers on the online. I will give a really brief grounding for the panel discussion and overview the Foundation Project's Finnish regional analysis regarding the SMEs at resilient rural regions. Our case study was targeted to the Nivala-Haapajärvi sub-region, and at the regional level, as we have heard, there is a remarkable anticipated structural change occurring as Pyhäsalmi mine is starting to end the mining activities. But luckily there is, of course, active mine reuse development and actions going on. But as the regions work as a larger regional economic entities, we have targeted the focus of our regional analysis by the rural resilience and especially to competitive enterprises, functional networks and regional labor markets. We interviewed pretty nice set of companies, 14 companies, which all are growth, which have growth attitude, and we asked themes related to company business environment, their networks, and the location decisions, why they are on this rural region. We wanted to know why companies are growing and what are the competitiveness prospects. We also wanted to know what are the growth bottlenecks and the needs of the companies for strengthening the competitiveness and also to get the skilled workforce. There is map now visible on the slides, and we are on that blue area in our thoughts. So we are in really up north. We are in Northern Ostrobothnia, and we are there in the Nihag region, including 5 municipalities. And we interviewed there 14 companies, and 9 of those are exporting actively. To show how far we are in the north and periphery and rural remote areas, so there is now 2 maps on the screen. On the left-hand side, you can see that when we are locating in the Northern Ostrobothnia and southern part of the region and Nivala-Haapajärvi region, we are pretty far from the urban cores. And in larger European perspective, on the left-hand side, the whole Northern Ostrobothnia is in the lowest class when it comes to the accessibility to European cores by the road and air transports. Companies were, of course, they were harmed by the COVID-19 pandemic, but they were as they were companies who were manufacturing mainly things for exports, they weren't so much harmed about the COVID-19. Of course, pandemic challenges sales activities, and the plans for internationalization has been delayed. Several companies pointed out that the pandemic has forced them to move towards the digital means in the marketing activities and reaching customers. And so that's also creates new resilience too. One key strength of the region were that none of the companies did not have any aim to move their product work from another region. And remote location of the region didn't show any kind of an obstacle for the growth. And there was other significant raise positive factors too. Good business environment was mentioned many times, and partnership networks and direct dialogue. And this was really functional with the public actors, companies, and also with the educational institutes. And municipalities felt to be encouraging attitude towards the companies and the entrepreneurs, and the companies felt that they are understood and communicated really well. And also the Nihak development company of the region were mentioned in this slide. But there were also some challenges, and I think that these are interesting topics for the panel too. One of the problems was the ensuring the skilled workforce and really long distances to education on different level from lower and higher education. So that was one of the problems. This is related to the cuts and closures of the secondary and tertiary education and training in the region. And company sees also that valuation of vocational education is declining nationally. So that's one of the problems reaching a skilled workforce. There were many topics also related to research and development topics. Growth is strongly founded in these companies on practice-based development. So they have this kind of trial and error type of develop their activities. The business is built very strongly around the customer needs and problem solving. And companies invest in R&D activities, but together with specific customer or supplier. So higher educational institutes or public bodies are not so strongly included to the RDI activities. Still, neighboring universities and colleges were seen highly valuable partners supporting the business renewal. And final end, I would like to show a few maps about the exports. So microenterprises are bringing the resilience also by their activities. And thing is now that Finland is lagging behind in this sector. So we have lots of exporting companies, but they are really big or middle-sized. But if we look at the microenterprises, the smallest companies, how actively they are exporting. So if we compare our status like Norway, or to Sweden or Estonia or Ireland or Netherlands, we are lagging behind pretty strongly. And if we look further in more accurate regional scope, regions of Finland, Sweden, and Baltic Sea region in general, there is pretty huge regional disparities in export activities of the smallest companies. But still there are some hotspots where microenterprises are really doing well in export activities. And there are also remarkable disparities in Finland, like in some parts near the coastal area and also eastern Finland, there are really strong export hubs there for small companies too. So would this opportunity to make companies to export in more early stage be one opportunity? Okay, thanks for the attention. There was lots of facts and findings in the report. So there is now the QR code in the presentation. So if you want to look further what kind of findings we had from the region, so you can check that from that links. So thanks, Simo. That was all for the panelists, and I'm expecting that we have a really good panel discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Ossi Kotavaara, Research Director at Kerttu Saalasti Institute at the University of Oulu. And now, while I invite the panelists to join me on the stage, I'll shortly introduce what the panel will be all about. So we'll be talking about how we can strengthen the competitiveness of SMEs and triple helix collaboration in rural regions. And I will be joined by 5 panelists on the stage. So panelists, please make your way to the stage. Thank you. And while panelists are making their way to the stage, I'll just briefly explain that the panel will be based on the Foundation Regional Analysis of Growing and International SMEs at Nivala-Haapajärvi sub-region, and we'll be answering questions like what kind of message we wish to transfer for regional policy developers, how research, development and innovation activities, and education and structural funds can better support the competitiveness of SMEs in rural regions. So please stay tuned. And now we are here. The hardest part has already been completed. We all found our seats. And I would now like to introduce the panelists to the audience. So on my right, I will present to you Mr. Janne Hietaniemi, who's a project manager of international affairs at NIHAG RY. Welcome, Janne.
Thank you.
Ville Isoherranen, who is the director in the School of Engineering and Natural Resources at the Oulu University of Applied Sciences. Welcome, Ville.
Thank you.
Tiina Rajala, Development Director of the Council of Oulu Region. Welcome back, Tiina.
Thank you.
On my left, I'll present to you Mr. Tapio Koivu, who's the Vice Director for Education at the University of Oulu. Welcome, Tapio.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And last but definitely not least, I will present to you Tiina Suutari, who's the group leader at the Center for Economic Development, Transport and the Environment in Northern Ostrobothnia. Welcome, Tiina.
Thank you.
And now we will start the panel in a very interesting way. So we'll be building up understanding from the ground level, company level, and we'll add up layers just like an onion. And we move our way towards the policy and EU levels in the discussion. And we'll be talking about companies' perspectives, R&D, education, regional policies, and funding. It'll be a pretty interesting discussion. And the first person I would like to take into the discussion is Janne. Janne, we quite often hear about incubators and accelerators for companies in big cities, but I hear that you've been doing some pretty interesting work in rural regions related to this area. So could you tell us how enterprise incubation and acceleration can increase growth and export activities in rural regions?
Yeah, thank you, Simo. Great to be in this great panel. I try to answer this in two levels. First, a little bit that what should be there and why, and only after that, that how that could be done in a practical level. And maybe I have three key points: the culture, the trust, and a challenger strategy. And with the culture, I think that what is needed there in the rural areas is growth mindset and kind of a startup culture. And Finland is a good example that we were able to build the startup culture on a national level during the last 10 to 15 years. I think everybody recognizes SLAS, which is the world's leading event in startup culture. And if you look at the statistics of Europe investment, we have been, I think, 4 or 5 years #1 country. If you look at the statistics, how much VC money, venture capital funding has been raised by the companies compared to the GDP. In Finland, the figure has been 0.2%, when the next ones, Sweden, UK, Netherlands, they have been 0.12. So that's something that you can really feel in Oulu, in Helsinki, maybe Jyväskylä, some other big cities. But how to have that in the remote areas? I don't feel the same when I'm visiting the companies there, that they really have the hunger to grow and hunger to collaborate. So I think that is maybe the most important thing. Two more points. This trust, it's a positive thing. I believe that it is there. It was Tiina who mentioned that there are municipalities of 950 people. Maybe the cities, they might have 10,000 inhabitants. So more or less people know each others there. And there is a certain trust that we can build on. And thirdly, this challenger strategy. If all the megatrends are against the regions, people are moving to the big cities, I think that you should be very smart I wouldn't like to say fight against that, because it's not smart to fight against the megatrends, but somehow to succeed in this environment. And for that, you should have very, very attractive profile for certain people and laser sharp focus on this and only this. And of course, it needs leaders who communicate this and so on. But you need to somehow surprise and even attack with the challenger strategy.
You mentioned a word there which I think plays a pretty important role in fostering this kind of a startup activity, which is collaboration. In your opinion, what are the most suitable collaboration models for rural regions and who needs to be included?
Yeah, I think that the digital communities, digital platforms, it's like a no-brainer, and it makes rural regions more equal than before. So it is competitive advantage for rural. And I was very happy to hear again, Tiina, you were mentioning that you don't fund anything that doesn't have the international approach. Of course, there needs to be the public, private, and the academia. That's for sure. But maybe the key additional ingredient are those international networks. They need to be in place.
Okay. Well, if we now expand this collaboration even in our discussion, and I will bring in Ville and Tapio right now, what are your first thoughts based on what Janne just said? Good things, bad things, needed, not needed?
Well, I think to build on that comment is that, of course, that if you think about in a let's say, very basic research and then very close to the applied research, I think that the key thing is, first of all, that if you talk about the rural regions, that the companies have access to the research and they have the access and contacts so that they can interact. And for example, if I just look into what we have done in our school is, of course, that we need to build the very basics in place because we have an annual planning with the calendar of how do we carry on the education. So we need to have even annual plan with the students and with the teachers that we have certain time frames when we interact with the companies. We have, for example, the events that we are asking for project topics, and then we need to have that like as a process. And those events need to be such that even companies in distant places can participate. So, of course, in this Corona period, we are all familiar with Teams and Zooms, and we have taken the leap. So it's more natural. But I think that still when you're looking at these higher education institutes, the key thing is that we have the basic processes in place, what we can offer to the companies so they can be in contact with us. And we can do it year after year. So it's not an isolated effort. But it's a hard work to build that kind of a system in place if you don't have them. In the applied sciences part, we have them, and we are able to interact with the companies annually and regularly. But the challenge is, of course, that companies in the rural regions, if there's not close or higher education institute in a nearby, and they need to take the extra steps to find the contacts and interact. But I think that this Corona had at least lowered the barriers to make the contacts. Another good thing that with what we are doing in Interac region is that we are actually bringing international students, workforce directly from our school to the Interac region. So we have, for example, trainers coming from Switzerland and other parts that are looking for a trainee place for the summer. And traditionally, we have been locating them close to Oulu. But now we have seen that why not start direct interaction with also with the companies that are not just in Oulu, but a bit further away. And that's something that it needs to also, let's say, change in our processes of thinking, that we can find the trainee places for international students, not only in the city region. And that will directly help with the workforce and boost up the innovation. But there are many things that we can do, but the key thing is to know each other first and have the discussion and the connections. And then we have a lot of tools and processes that we can use.
So the word trust pops up again. Tapio, how does it look like from the University of Oulu's perspective?
Well, obviously we look at from perspective of where do we get the needed knowledge and the students who will actually be able to enter into smaller companies, whether they be in our region in Oulu or in more remote areas or rural areas in Finland. Obviously, for them, it's always a personal question of
where do you find yourself in a few years living and spending time? Is the environment nice and attractive? What are the sort of things that make people move to a certain area? And I liked your notion of laser sharp focus in this sense. If you know of people who have a certain type of a knowledge and in cases where you need them the most, it's always something rather narrow, unless you want a very generalist CEO or somebody at that level. But for them, making targeted campaigns to attract this sort of people is what I would go for. And then we have to have a strategy that builds on recognizing what the focus area is, where do we find the most prominent places to go to, where are the segments where people actually study that sort of thing. We, at the moment, for example, we talk to a number of companies who have definite needs in certain areas of expertise for dozens of skilled workers. And we can obviously help them in providing these recruits further education, open university courses, even degree programs, if they are knowledgeable enough to enter, of course. But I think the government is also doing its best to actually form these sort of programs. They have programs like Talent Hub and Talent Boost, and those are very good steps. How to access those from remoter areas is a key thing as well. And obviously being active, being more knowledgeable about those, taking the phone and calling us without hesitation is something I would do and recommend. And we are definitely very open to speaking to companies of any size to alleviate this sort of thing.
Well, Ossi highlighted in his presentation that the availability of skilled workforce is an increasing problem in rural regions. And Ville and Tapio, you both represent higher education institutions. And for example, the University of Oulu has JOY, distance learning, new methods. The University of Applied Sciences has the new master programs and work-based skill programs. How can you see that these new methods and then the graduate of these programs could help rural regions increase their know-how?
Well, for example, we are currently discussing to a number of remoter cities in our region, province, area, and trying to form, use what we've learned from this pandemia and remote working, remote learning, to establish programs where people from these cities actually can access our courses, whether they be online or even hybrid or face-to-face. And this can be done with minimizing the need to actually travel and be here, live in Oulu. Then obviously the threshold of entering a university and getting an education becomes lower, and that's something I would very much like to see happening in our remoter areas. And obviously it's like it's been said so many times that pandemia has really taken us to a next level, and the digital leap has happened. Well, maybe it's taken us to another extreme. Everything went digital overnight. But what happens when we back off from that, become closer to face-to-face? We talk about hybrids. It's not that easy. It's easy to do either or, but in between, it's more complicated. And this needs really a lot of effort to accomplish ways where the threshold still is low. We need to find out ways of producing content for learners so that it's really accessible. We have to find, even established places where you can do your exams remotely. For example, we're discussing this with Kuusamo, but still we're in our sort of infancy of starting this sort of effort, I think.
Yeah, things change pretty drastically. Ville, are you able to relate to what Tapio just said?
I guess really the challenge will be the hybrid mode in a way that when you have people in the classroom or people online, so how do we do it with the same teacher? How do the teacher interacts with both on the online and both in the classroom? We have some nice kind of technical solutions to build such rooms that you are not have to avoid the microphones, or if you draw to the table, you can stream those in. But it needs to be really a specific classroom. All of the classrooms are not equipped with those. So definitely what it needs and demands is, of course, the teachers to have the skills also to teach online, but also teach to the classroom and combine those. So also the human factor, that how do we educate the teachers? How do we build up the competencies to be present in both of the worlds? And what comes to those, let's say, master degrees that you can do in the applied sciences part, those are more like a web-based, and you can do them distantly. But of course, in our world, in the applied sciences, we need the skills to really apply. So we need a lot of the laboratory skills to be in place. So you need to have certain kind of engineering feeling, building things, breaking things, meeting with the groups and creating new products. And those are still quite difficult to do online. But of course, we need also new kind of learning environments where group can meet and build their things, if you think about engineers. So, but I think I'm looking quite positively forward. We have a new campus, totally new laboratories, totally new learning places here. And we have done a lot of investments from the structural funds and also from the donors that have donated money from the fundraisers. And I would say that we are in a good shape to take the leap also to the laboratories in hybrid mode. Somebody present, somebody via online. And moreover, we are moving in the format that no longer one is doing and 5 is watching, but each individual can reserve the time to come to the laboratory and do the exercises. And those are important aspects for us engineers, that you can build and break the stuff in the labs, and then again gain the skills that you are able to survive in the work world.
Before I bring in Tiinas, I just want to ask a short question from you both. You already mentioned about how these higher education graduates could move to rural regions. How do we achieve that? Is it easy, or what needs to be done from the point of view of an education institution to make the graduate move to rural regions?
Well, I think the most practical thing is what I would build on is that if you're able to, for example, the most demanding case is to attract a foreign student to come to Oulu, and he or she is paying for the education, and then make sure that those would be interested to work in a rural region. It's already starting with the first summer. If we can get the summer job, the trainee position in the companies, for example, in Nivala or Pyhäjärvi, Haapjärvi, and make sure that quality of living is there, they can introduce they get networks, and then also the second summer trainings. We need the connections. If there's a good job that they're interested, I'm sure that they would be interested also after graduation to go there to work. But if we wait for 4 years and then they are just introduced within Oulu, I think that the step is as big as it's for Finnish student to go to abroad. So the key thing is the first summer, first job.
And building connections.
Yes.
Okay. Tapi, what are your thoughts?
Well, I would really, I liked your answer a lot. And I think the trainee periods are really, really important in this sense. And how the companies can make students welcome, whether we can make also the traineeship or the period more worthwhile for the students by introducing maybe companies' challenges in a way that they can be linked to the content that you study, maybe even allocate groups of students to work in and look into what can be done within the company's context as a next step in developing something. I would go for these sort of not just hackathons, but periods of study that would link the let's say design of new products, for example, to courseworks and well, make the students even travel to remote areas during the terms.
Very practical links to working life. And now, Tiina Rajala and Tiina Suutari, before we move on to the public sector theme of the discussion, I just want to ask, how does the discussion sound so far? What are your first impressions?
I think I can agree with these gentlemen, many of these things, and what I was thinking that when we are discussing about education, we are mostly thinking about the young people who are starting their working life little by little. And now I understand my son much more better because he's studying the engineering, and now I understand this build and broke what he has been done at the home. So in the future and today, these young people has to learn also social skills. So my opinion is that it can't be all the time this kind of learning that they are not meeting each other. They are the most important skills in the world, that you have social skills. And when they are studying, they are quite often meeting their future partner in their life, maybe. And that's a very strong base for the rest of their life. And for the rural areas, it's a chance with the people who are now already in the labor market, because COVID have shown for the companies that people can work wherever they want. Just they have to have working line. So that's very important. And third thing is that in the future there will be long time learning, much more important than today. So people maybe have to have more examination than just one, like what we have done in our life. So I think these things for the educational regards from me, that there has to be the place where the students can meet and learn each other, and also teachers has better contacts. We have lost several young people during this year. They moved to the new city, started their studies. They didn't have not the network supporting them, and the learning was over the net. So I don't. That's a crisis for the next years, I think so.
Social skills and social networks really pop up.
Yeah, I think that just to build on Tiina's comment is that I think it's one of the key things is that as we said, we talk about young people, but I think that the topic of this seminar is the resilience. And one of the resilience is that how about when you have graduated one career and then you see that there's this structural change, you need to find a new path and find a way to find a new job and educate yourself in a new way. So I think that the university, for example, this joy that and these paths are really that how do we bridge the people back to that working life, and they might learn a totally new discipline. And those are the challenges we see. And I think that my feeling is that when we have a structural change, I think we see in the students also the more elderly people that are also, they have previous degree and they are changing their degree. So it also challenges us that we need to have the systems in place within our curriculums that we are able to speed the process for graduation, because they have already ready skills and ready something that we can already recognize. So it doesn't need to be a full 4-year, 5-year program, but we can have a shorter, like a transfer from different disciplines. But just a reflection.
Yeah, I'll give the floor to Tiina and then Satapu.
Yeah.
Quickly. Yeah.
It was really, I was really pleased to all about this. things you said here, because my point of view here is that we are not a part of structural funds, but we are doing rural development, and it is in common agriculture policy, actually. So our business is more like helping farms and micro-size businesses, companies, enterprises. And it is interesting that you all like to help, as I understood, all those little entrepreneurs too, and think about their problems. And I think that you have quite many solutions too, and the help about the learning and having educated people to come to the companies to help they export and such things what they are thinking about.
Tapio, you had a quick comment here.
Yes, I just wanted to make the comment about the threshold of entering into studies for people who have already a profession. And I just want to make a note that our university, as 10 other Finnish higher education institutes, are a part of the European university network, which is pushing for this sort of transformation where they call it micro-credentials, smaller units of study that can be picked up by people who work and have little less time to actually consume studying or attend. And this way, or this tendency is coming, so mark my words, micro-credentials, it will make a difference.
You heard it first here. This is a question for both Tiina, so I want to build up on the role of the public sector in rural development. In your opinion, what are the key assets that public sector may provide to rural companies?
Well, for example, if we think about export, so we can't support export exactly, but we can help the entrepreneurs to build up their investments, and we can give them money some to get exports experts to their companies to come and help there. And I think it is important that, as you mentioned before, that they have also the accessibility, any kind of accessibility for logistic and network connections too, that they have to have. And I think we are doing quite much and good work for them to have those things to come to the rural areas. Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Tiina?
I think one of the main tasks from the public sector is helping, for example, like permissions. That's a challenging area because there can be a lot of things that are doing the walls that you can't expand your actings, for example, and of course the cooperation with the companies, authorities, licensing, quality things, and these kind of things is something what is really concerned about the company's products and how you can take or export them. And this needs a lot of quality testing and this kind of things. I was just thinking when Ville was saying about or Janne about that we have financed many of the labs in our regions, and I think those are very, very good concepts because they are financed with the public money. They has to have open access. So all companies can come and test their products. We had very successful labs we called SOTE labs in our university hospital. And there were also people who use those products. So they could have a feedback from the doctors, nurses, and then we combine your students there, and then there's a company. So that's like a triple helix, the best thing what we can do. And because they are open and free for the companies. That's a good example for I think, for that things.
You also mentioned the role of public funding, and I would like to ask about the European Regional Development Fund. So how strong is the influence of ERDF, and how does it work? How does it support rural competitiveness?
It's easy to say with money.
Okay.
So when we are evaluating about the projects applications which is coming, of course we have the direct EU funding rules what we can finance, and we have same task with Tiina that we have to look the applications with these eyes that we analyzed. Are they guiding the book with EU, accept book, and are they guiding what I told you, the regional plans, where we have put our arrows where we can and where we can point the money, and then the local cooperation is very important that our developers, our research workers, they have very trustful cooperation. And I really trust our experts in these regions, both our universities and also these municipal business companies what we have in these regions.
Before I open the panel for all of you, I would just like to ask from you, Tiina, about smart specialization. We just heard about these different kind of programs where you include the students of higher education institutes and you create these clusters from companies and education institutes. How do these themes look from the perspective of rural regions?
In our region, we have selected that our food production and biotechnology, for example, are the key smart specialization areas. And they really fit on our area and rural area especially. For example, that we have organic farms in our area, and we are producing now food and exporting actually it like oats to the other countries and the third countries, not only in Europe. But as a whole, you can say that together we are more. So of course we have to choose our speciality and put the efforts just to those specialized area.
And how do these smart specialization themes change in the future?
Interesting question. Yes. We just chosen those. This is a new work as was done. And of course, we are doing in our common agriculture policy to some studies here nowadays. But you could say that, of course, these digital inventions and doing our work and everything as a new way. We don't actually know what is going on and what is happening after this pandemic world and crisis. So I think there's going to be much even better chances for us to break through, like in tourist questions, and so I'm waiting for it. Yeah.
Sounds wonderful. So now I am opening the discussion for audience questions too. So audience, if you want to send questions to our panelists, use the hashtag rural. Let me check it over here. I'm also forgetting it. It was over here. So hashtag resilient rural regions. You got it right. And we can also present these questions for the panelists. But before we go to the audience questions, I would like to open the discussion for everyone. And I think we've heard the word international quite many times. Is it possible that the rural regions could be really attractive internationally? And how? What is your point on that? Janne is the fastest.
Yeah, I think definitely that's possible. And we have actually a very beautiful example, very recent one. And it's also about the competencies, because I think that the companies, they need to be competitive in the global market. And for that, they need to have the best expertise in the world at their use. And the access to the best expertise is actually there. And the example I want to raise here is that in the region there is a company called Trace Grow, which is nominated many times like #1 company in the circular economy. They are manufacturing fertilizers out of the waste. But what is the very interesting there is that it's located in Kärsämäki. And the chairman of the board, or chairwoman of the board, is Miss Kaisa Hietala, who was appointed to the board of ExxonMobil 2 weeks ago to take care of the green transition of that company. So at the same time, the same leader can be in the board of the ExxonMobil, America's greatest company, one of those, and in the local company Trace Grow. I think that's quite beautiful.
That sounds absolutely wonderful. And I think Kaisa is an alumni of the University of Oulu, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so that's how about any other perspectives from the international point of view? Yeah.
In our smart specialization strategy, we have take 3 areas where we should be good and what has to be connected to our projects. Renewable and healthy. We have good health technology, for example. Second is climate smart. We know the climate change. And third, international, attractive, and networked. So that's the point. So it's no point that I'm cutting Ville's hair and Ville is cutting my hair. So there has to be something else. So we really need the international connects, and it is so happy that you have part of this project.
Yeah, and just to maybe look forward with this kind of overall topic of the regional and rural regions, how to be resilient is, of course, I think in many cases we come back to that entrepreneur that has decided to establish the company. And let's say wants to reside in Kärsämäki, wants to reside in other part of the let's say outside of Oulu. So how do we create such an environment that those entrepreneurs see that they are able to establish the companies, they are ready to take the first step to hire the first employee, maybe the second, maybe the third, so that there's a growth. It needs to have either sales in Finland or sales outside. And I think one of the topics that the Kerttu Saalasti Institute has been researching, that how the micro companies are able to do more exports. So I think that those are interesting findings to see that how even the small companies could able to make the sales outside of Finland and able to hire people. But the thing is, if we come back still to that one person deciding or 2 persons decide to establish the company, is of course that they are locating somewhere. And I think the key thing is that are we able to, in the higher education, are we starting up companies that home base in the rural region see as a competitive environment, or are we able to supplement the companies there with the skilled workforce so that established companies can grow? And those are kind of different kind of challenges. I think most development companies are able to have those, let's say, low entry facilities for the entrepreneurs to come and start up, but also the local municipalities, the local towns, they need to have the vigor policy of their own. How do they build the schooling, housing, healthcare? So those need to be in place. So I think this is a very, 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 let's say the basic functions of the municipality. So on top of those, the companies are able to select that I will reside here and I will start working here. And then they need to have access then to the research programs with the university, solve their problems, or the skilled workforce. And I think that whatever policies we are setting up, it still comes down to that entrepreneur, that I'm ready to take the risk of establishing my company. And those kind of intentions are going even in the elementary and kind of comprehensive school, that what they have been learned as a mindset. Are they looking the ways forward? Like you started your speech about the entrepreneurial mindset. Is it there? Is it an option for me to build my own company? Or what? So I think that those are the fundamentals that need to be in place. And many of the region's companies in Nivala Hyper region, they're actually established by the people that are originally from there. So I think we need quite a few companies that are actually coming outside and starting to establish, for example, in Kärsämäki or Nivala region, but they are grown from that population there. I think that's the advantage, but it's also a challenge if you want to scale the company.
Exactly. And like if you remember when Mario was saying that there is entrepreneurs' well-being is very challenging at the moment. So there's always, when I said that it's always question about the people, the quality of the life, for example. If their families are doing well, the entrepreneur is doing well. Yeah. That's also something that we unfortunately sometimes forget.
Yeah, Tapio.
Well, for me also, it's I've been thinking about this, and I experienced a couple of cases where a company is really located somewhat remotely, although right next to a freeway and logistically okay location. However, the guys who have established these companies are skilled in forming the actual business idea, and that's the core thing. If the business idea is something that's timed well, it's entering the market from the right angle, you get customers, they won't ask where you ship the product from. They will just look at the quality and the price, and if they are happy, they will buy. This company, for example, they knew that worldwide they had a sort of a similar type of a product that was selling like crazy all over the world, and they put that product into as a search word into LinkedIn, and then checked for companies that are selling that product as agents. Then they contacted these agents around the world and said, well, we have kind of a similar thing from Finland. Are you ready for the next great innovation that you can sell forward? And in a few weeks, they got dozens of replies saying that, yes, please send us a demo. And, well, nobody was asking where this company is from, and they weren't interested. But at this point, the company is really at a point where their sales might really tenfold in about a year or so. And right now, they are a micro company, less than 10, in a remote area. So it's the core is really how good the business is it scalable, and then okay, the location is something that comes as a bonus if it's somewhere that's nice, that has resources, that can actually support also the staff, the management, and also the logistics around there. So.
What a wonderful story. And just as eagerly as we've been discussing these concrete examples and suggestions, I think the audience is eagerly wanting to ask questions from our panelists. So I give the mic to Ossi. We have questions there.
Yeah, thanks, Simo. There is Varai from Cork Island has a question. This is targeted for Tiina, but I guess this is a larger question too. Is there a fear that the increase in international cooperation might result in a region being more vulnerable, like resilient? The thing is that being more globalized might make a region more susceptible to global recessions. So does globalization also make a less resilient
the region, and does it present more risks? What is your take on this?
Of course, there's a risk because we have unfortunately, when Nokia changed their strategy a few years ago, it means to this area that after one night there was 2,000 less working places here. So it's a risk, but I would say that for the micro companies and SMEs, it's less risk and more possibilities.
Is there any way to mitigate the risks that might come with more globalization?
Just to reflect on that, maybe it's also hard to think that we are not on an island in any form, that it's very difficult to escape the competition, even if you decide to just focus on the local markets, because somebody might enter the market in any case. And I guess the thing is that how you make sure that you're competitive enough to go outside. So I think that the best way of keeping your company resilient and fit is that if you're able to sell also outside Finland or outside your region. So I think that there's a lot of challenges there, but I also see that there's a bigger risk if you just remain in a domestic market. There's of course place for domestic market companies, and there will be always those selling domestically. But if you're thinking about the export, is anyway you're expanding your market. Because some companies are doing just fine selling within the same road to other companies and serving their needs, but the market size is quite limited. And still, if you talk about the global recessions, they will come also to the local markets with some delay, because we are all connected in a way, and our society is dependent on, especially in small nations like we are in Finland, how we export and how our export is doing. But definitely, I think the smart strategy is that you are local, but you're also global, and you have a variety of customers. I think the more challenging is that if you're just serving one big company, is it Finland or outside, because those things can then happen, like Tiina said, overnight. But I think there's still a lot of opportunities there, but it's definitely risk taking, and I think that it's all about being an entrepreneur, that you're seeing the risk as an opportunity.
Very, very good points. We have time for a couple of more questions from the audience.
Yeah, there is many of questions, but I guess
you need to pick the best ones.
And maybe the best question is
ones.
that from Stephanie from Austria. Do you have a shock plan? And I guess the question is about that we have now seen a really strong shock by the COVID-19, but it's not maybe the last shock that we are going to meet. Let's hope that it goes that way. But do we have a shock plan for the next shock? So.
We should have a glass bowl that we could see.
I hope the silence is in answer to this question, whether or not you have a shock plan.
Well, I think it's a very quite demanding question in a way that I think we have, if you talk about Finland, went quite over this COVID, and we are still doing quite fine reasonably, and we are seeing that the actions we are taking, they have been quite drastic in some areas, but we have able to keep the infections in a quite limited scale. But the thing is also, of course, that when we go forward is this, that how do we analyze what we have learned and what we make as a mistake, what we can learn. I think we have a good structure like this, like a supply and warehousing and things, but still we see a lot of challenges in that part also. It's very hard to predict the future, how did it go, but it's in Finnish DNA to keep distance to the other people. So we have already been training that for thousands of years, that we are keeping social distancing. So we were prepared for this shock as a nation, but it's hard to predict how it goes. And I think one notion is that if we come back to the companies and the resilient thing is that I think we saw a lot of companies think that maybe it's not a clever idea to have the old production done in China or Asia. And maybe we have even a chance to bring home some manufacturing. it needs to be coupled with the digitalization, automatization, and we need to be competitive when this was over. But I think we need to be smart in when we are applying something, when we are purchasing, sourcing something in the public sector, that we are also keeping the local companies alive. So we are not going always to the cheaper price. We talk all about these masks that were on great demand, and it's time to set up the production. But there's other parts of that. What is the kind of food production? What is the basic necessities? So I think there's learns to be taken here, and then we as a higher education can help the companies to make those production changes back to Finland or back to Europe. But
very, very good. Yeah, Tabi.
I would like to just state that I think it was General Eisenhower who said that all plans always fail, but planning is indispensable. And what we have learned that probably we don't need an explicit plan as such, but we need to be prepared. And the activity of planning and thinking of scenarios where things can happen needs to be done. The preparedness is something that I would vote for.
Tiina and Janne, do you also follow old Ike's advice in your respective organizations?
Yeah, about this question, Stefani in Austria, about the shock plan. I was actually thinking the same, that we need to have certain plans, but more important is that then when the change happens, we are very flexible and agile to adapt. And that's the key thing. And I think actually that in a national level, we are practicing that already. I want to mention another university from Finland, Lappeenranta University of Technology, and they have been running those fast expert teams, taking together all the experts around the Finland, for example, how to adapt to the new situation during the corona. I think this kind of an exercises, they will make us more resilient for the next shock to come.
Okay, Tiina.
Yeah, I think this came out that we have really resilience, and our entrepreneurs, they can do the changes in their business and services they give us. So this is actually, of course, not the first crisis. For example, in our food production sector, the Russian trade was catastrophically going down in one time, and after all, we managed to get new businesses and get new market areas. So I think the entrepreneurs have shown us that they can do the difference before the times and during the times in their business. But of course, we have to have big strategies, and it is time to have them and have all wise men and women to talk about those things after we have seen this big shock. What has it done for us? Mm.
Resilience in action. And Tiina, you also had a comment there.
Yeah, thank you. All the good companies and they board, they go time to time through the risk and risk map. So I think we are much more ready at the moment that now we know that it can be so totally that we are crashing or not. Like I said, that we have to have the seatbelt. I hope we have learned a lot about this COVID-19, and it's not only in private sector, also public sector has done this at the moment.
Dear panelists, you know that when you're discussing about something really interesting, time flies. And it also happens to be the moment that our panel is drawing to a close. But since the topic of our panel was about strengthening the competitiveness of SMEs and the triple helix collaboration in rural regions, I would like to ask from every single one of you if we could summarize one message for the coming years, whether it be decision makers or companies or education institutions, you can decide. What would be the message that you want to send out? Janne.
Actually, I picked this because we didn't speak about this yet, and it's very important that if we speak about the small village, people have lived there for centuries. They know each other. It's people start to become quite alike, and we didn't speak about diversity. So maybe that's the key wish from my side, that in a way or another, all parties, be it in the public players, development agencies or companies, we should celebrate the diversity, because the different type of thinking, it brings those innovations that we need.
Celebrating diversity. What a wonderful message.
Well,
okay.
Continuing that, maybe from the education perspective is and looking forward to young people and entrepreneurs out in the lines, is that always when you're thinking about hiring a new person directly from the school, it's really important that you are able to give the person the first job when they're graduating. And I think that is message I would like to give, that when your possibility of hiring, we see a lot of in the job announcements, a lot of criteria for years and years experience, but somehow it's good to hire somebody who has the first job, fresh experience from the schools. So hire younger people, give the first job.
Hire young people. Tiina.
I think it's cooperation in every level, in your social life, in your working life, and also in this little village where they have been many years, and cooperation internationally too.
Cooperation on all levels of life. That's the key ingredient. Tiina, okay, yeah.
I would like to have a word to entrepreneurs. I think that we have here quite many aces in our hands, and we have to believe on them. For example, our nature and poorness, and we only need to have them to the customers. We only have to have these links together, and we have quite many opportunities to do good business in our area.
So seize the opportunities, entrepreneurs. Wonderful message. And Tapio?
Well, I would like to add to that that one should be really brave of thinking of your own idea and trust what you think, or trust your ideas as much as you can, because that really is the key thing. Being brave in looking for growth, because there's always an area in the world that's growing, and the demand is growing somewhere as we speak, and access to that area is as close as your internet connection, and also access to partners that can help you to actually find that growth are really closer than you think.
So trust in your ideas, believe in yourself, and find the right partners. Ladies and gentlemen, we just heard from the panel that the key recipe for successful strengthening of SMEs and triple helix collaboration in rural regions is consisting of 6 parts: celebrating diversity, hiring young people, cooperation on all levels of life, seizing the opportunities, and trusting, believing in yourself, and finally, finding the right partners. So those are the key takeaways from our panel. Dear panelists, thank you so much for taking part in this discussion. And this is not the end of the discussion, right? So remember to continue the discussion on social media. I think most of our panelists can be found on Twitter. So if you want to send questions, be more than welcome to do so. But at this point, I would like to thank you, our dear audience, for joining this Planning for Structural Change, SMEs and Resilient Rural Regions webinar organized by Regional Excellence Research Group as a part of foundation projects funded by Interac Europe. From all of us to all of you, we wish you a very merry, warm and sunny summer. Stay safe and stay healthy. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.